Hi, I'm Rita. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Life Worth Reading. Today I'm filming a book recommendations video, but I am doing something that I have done only once before, and it's been about 2 years since I have done it, and that is pick a card and get a book recommendation. I first did this video when I was using my tarot cards a lot. I still use them, but not specifically for videos. I haven't used them for TBRs in a while, but I always use the Mystic Mondays by Grace Duong, and I was using them to give you book recommendations. And so I had 5 cards face down. You would pick whichever one you were feeling the most drawn to, and whichever card you got certain book recommendations that related to the themes of those cards. It's a fairly simple idea. I thought it would be fun to do it again because I'm always looking to do more book recommendations, but I never really know what theme I should go for or how to build a book recommendations video. So I thought that this would be a good way to just let fate decide which cards show up and which cards I have to recommend books for. So I am going to take you to the part where I chose the cards. It is just like a very simple method where I am shuffling my cards and I pick 5 of them, and you need to pause the video, look at the 5 cards and see whichever one you're the most drawn to from 1 to 5, and then I will put the timestamps in the video so you can skip to whichever card you got. If you picked card number 1, the one that you got is the 7 of Cups. And this is a card for opportunities, choices, something good is presenting itself to you. But on the reverse side of that, it may also be wishful thinking. Maybe the good thing that is being offered to you is actually hiding something more menacing. Maybe it is an illusion. So you really have to be careful to consider if this is a good thing that is being offered to you, and really check in with yourself and your intuition to know if this is perhaps hiding something that is not great. The first book that I'm going to recommend for this card, and I hope that this makes sense when I do explain it, is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is a book about our main character Robin, who was taken from his family in Canton in China, and he's taken back to Oxford to the Babel Institute for Translation, where he is offered the opportunity to study translation and to become one of the greatest translators and to really help to build something that is presumably good. The reason I picked this book for this card in specific is because you do know going into it that this is actually not a good opportunity. Perhaps it's not an opportunity at all. It's not his choice. He's a child when he's taken there by force, and he's given this opportunity to be a translator. What he does learn when he gets there is that this is actually just a facade for him to help Britain maintain their empire and to force them to still be on top of all of the other countries, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a menace disguised as an opportunity, and he does have a little bit of a choice in this. Does he want to continue and save himself and participate in this whole scheme, or does he want to take a stand? So it is about choice, it is about wishful thinking, it is about opportunities, and it is about an illusion. This is something that was given to him disguised as something else. So that's why I picked this book. Next up, on a more positive note of this card, I chose Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tojimura. This is one of the first books that I read this year, so it's very fresh in my mind, and I did want to recommend it because this was a 5-star read for me. And the reason why I picked it for this card in specific is because it also deals with opportunity and choice, but in a more positive light, because we are following our main character Kokoro, and she hasn't been going to school. She has been really anxious about it. There's a really big talk of mental health and illness in here, and so she has been very anxious lately, and she is given the opportunity to travel to this castle through her mirror, where she finds other kids that are similarly in the same situation as her, and they are given the opportunity to search for a key in order to make a wish. And so this book is more also about the opportunity to change your situation, being given the choice to help yourself and to get better. It's about community. It's about helping each other out. It's about friendship. And I really do see that this is a Seven of Cups in a much more positive note. The opportunity to better yourself and to do better next time, and to really search within you why you want to get better, why you want to help yourself out and your friends. So that's why I picked it for this card. It had beautiful writing. It's a beautiful book. You should definitely read it. And I feel like it really does suit the Seven of Cups, because they are being offered an opportunity to really change their lives. And finally, the other one that I do not own physically is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This I recommend more on the wishful thinking part, also because of tough choices. But Piranesi is about our main character, Piranesi, and he's trapped in this huge labyrinth. He doesn't really know where he is, but Piranesi is the face of wishful thinking, but like in a really positive way. He just loves his life so much, even though it is very, very strange, and he's in a very strange environment, and he's alone most of the time, but he really does find a way to love his life and to be a good person. And I think that he really is a definition of like wishful thinking and creating opportunities for yourself and enjoying what you are being offered. And then later on, it does come with some tough choices. So I think it also does fit the theme of choice in there, and the opportunity to either stay or move away from the situation. So those are my recommendations for card number 1, and we are now going to move on to card number 2. Card number 2, if you pick this, you got the Queen of Wands, which is a very beautiful card. And this card is all about confidence, courage, determination, being a social butterfly, being an independent, specifically a queen, but it doesn't have to be. And so for this card, I picked a few different books. The first one that I have to tell you about, it may seem kind of weird, but it's actually Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Sutanto. I've very, very recently finished this book, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't like an all-time favorite or anything, but I really does feel like it fits this card, because our main character, Vera Wong, she's the definition of independence, courage, confidence. Like, she's a social butterfly, and she is determined to make things happen for herself. She owns a tea shop in San Francisco, in Chinatown, and one day she finds a man dead in there, and she's like, oh, I have to solve this. And so she takes it into her own hands, and she meets this cast of characters who she calls her suspects, but who she also establishes friendships with. And she just is a definition of like determined to find the truth. She is determined to get there, and she is confident in her methods. So I feel like it really does fit the theme of this card. I loved Vera Wong as a main character, and also I feel like any Jessie Sutanto book, because I also read Dial A for Aunties, and it also does fit with this theme of like being independent and courageous and confident and determined to do a certain thing. And I just think that, yeah, I think that Vera Wong was a great main character, and it really is like a Queen of Wands. Next up, I have Elat's Away by Darcy Little Badger. This is a book that is much more soft in its themes, but I think it really does apply as well, because Elat's Away is also a main character that is very determined. Even though she's not the most confident in herself always, she does find a way to be courageous, and she's very determined to find the truth and to find out what she needs to find out. I really do believe that this is a book that fits the purpose of a Queen of Wands, especially because she's so young already. So you can see that she will grow into a more confident person, and an even more courageous person, but she already is such a little Queen of Wands, and I think that this book is beautiful. The representation is really interesting as well. I loved learning more about this culture, and I really recommend it just overall, but also for this specific theme, because yeah, I just loved Let's Wait so much. And in a more like delusional way, I would recommend How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie, but be warned, a lot of people hate this book. I feel like I'm one of the only people that enjoyed it. So go into it knowing that a lot of people really, really hate this book. But this book is about our main character, whose name I do not remember. This was an audiobook. And she is determined to get revenge on her entire family. And so it's really just her Delulu ass, just like plotting all these murders. And I mean, that is the face of determination. She is determined to make this happen. She is confident in her plan. She is courageous through and through, and she gets shit done. That's why I would say this. It's in a much more Delulu way. The story is very like goofy, and a lot of people hated it, but I had a good time. I listened to the audiobook and it was just like fun. Like I was just walking down the street and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that she's doing this. And I just had a good time. I thought it was entertaining. But be warned that a lot of people do not like this book. Then for those who have picked card number 3, you got the King of Swords. And this card is very, very powerful. This is the card of mental clarity, intellectual power, authority, truth, like using all of this mental capabilities to find out things, to achieve certain objectives, and to just get things done. The King of Swords is a very, very highly intellectual person that will get the things that they want done. And so for this card, I have a few recommendations, more on like mysteries level. The first one is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This is a book about our main character, Stevie, who is determined to find out the truth about kidnapping and possible murder that has happened at this academy many years before. So this is all about deduction. This is all about using mental clarity and intellectual power to find out the truth. It is the definition of a mystery solved that way, with deduction, with logic, and not so much with like silly instincts as, for example, Vera Wong was. And so I would recommend this book. I think that the series is not the best. The original trilogy at least was a little bit disappointing, but I did really enjoy this first one. And I think that she really does fit the face of a King of Swords that will use their intellectual powers to solve things and to find out the truth. On that note as well, we have Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Amidi. And this is a very popular book, or at least it was a couple of years ago when I read it. And this is also about two black characters that are studying at this private school as well. So it also has that element of like authority. And they are trying to uncover who is harassing them, because they're like receiving these letters, I think. And they are trying to find out who it is. So it really, the underlying themes is much more social in that way. It's not really just like a straightforward mystery. It has a lot of social layers to it. But I really do think that it is about these two level-headed characters that are trying to find out the truth by logic, by deduction. It has a lot of interesting themes explored. It is interesting. It gets a little bit insane towards the end, but I think that the way that they approach the situation is very, very in touch with what this card represents. My other recommendation is City of Thieves by David Benioff. The reason why I'm recommending this book is because it's a survival story. This book follows two Russian men that are thrown into jail when the Nazis invade St. Petersburg, and they are given a choice, either to be executed or to try to find 12 eggs for the general's daughter's wedding cake. And so obviously they choose the latter option, but it is as close as being sentenced to death, because Russia is going through a really tough winter. It's going through a famine, it's going through a war. And so finding 12 eggs when people really just don't have enough to eat is basically a S-word mission itself. And so the reason why I picked this book for this card is because they need to use their intellectual power and their mental clarity and the little authority that they have to try and achieve this mission, to try to survive and to try to get where they need to get. And it's a very complicated book. It has a lot of hard things in it. It's very hard to read at times, but I thought it was great. I thought it was a great story, different from other World War II stories that I've read before. I thought it was really interesting, and I think that the way that they approach this mission is very level-headed. It's very mental clarity, intellectual power, and trying to achieve what they have to achieve. And the final book that I would recommend is my all-time favorite book. I would recommend The Shadow of the Wind by Carl Louis Zafón. Even though this is much more lyrical and beautiful and poetic than it is like a straightforward intellectual book, I think that the way that Daniel approaches the mystery that is throughout, he's trying to find an author whose book he finds. So he finds a book and he's trying to find out more about the author and about the other copies of the book, and he finds that they're all destroyed. No one knows about him anymore. And so there is a mystery to solve. There is steps to be achieved, and I think that the way that he does approach the situation does remind me of this card. That's why I'm recommending it. But it is a much more beautiful and lyrical book than it is like a straightforward solving the mystery using your powers of deduction story. But I think it's worth recommending as well. I think it's a great story, and I think that you would really enjoy it if you read it. Then if you picked card number 4, you got the Knight of Cups. And this is one of the most romantic cards on the deck, except for like the lovers and straightforward cards like that. But this is a very romantic card. And so it represents creativity, imagination, charm, beauty, romance. And because of this, I have chosen a couple of books that do really remind me of this beautiful, charming imaginativity and creativity aspects of it. And one of them is Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows. The reason why I'm picking this book is more because of the creativity. They are all of these widows that are being taught by this young girl in England, and they are all writing erotic stories and doing creative writing. I think that it's a really creative book. It's really imaginative. I think that it's really charming as well. I love the characters in it. It does have a lot of hard things to it as well. It's not just like a straightforward feel-good book, but I had a really great time with it, and I think it's really, I really admired the creativity of these widows, and I think that it is very well done in that aspect. Then I'm going to recommend a couple of books that have a really great romance in it. They might not be a very happy ending romance, but I don't read a lot of romance. But one of my all-time favorite romances is People Who Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Everyone knows this book. I don't really need to get into it, but it is one of my favorite romance books, so I had to include it here. Then I also have Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson. This also has a lot of sad themes. It also has a lot of social and political opinions. It is about what it means to be Black in Britain, but it is also a story of love. It is a love story. It is a story about two people meeting, falling in love, their relationship. So there's a lot of romance in it. There's a lot of beauty in it. There's a lot of charm in it. It's just not a very straightforward romance in that sense, but it is really worth reading. And I think it does remind me of the Knight of Cups because of its dreaminess and the approach to the romance, that it's really beautiful to read about. Then I would also recommend The Inheritance of Arcadia Divina by Zoraida Cordova. This is a very lyrical and beautiful book, and I think that it just reminds me of this imagination, creativity, just this beauty and this charm. It's a kind of intergenerational story. It's about this matriarch that is telling her life story, and it does have some magical realism to it. There are some of those imaginative parts to it, which is why I picked it for this card. I think it's a little bit underrated. It came out a couple of years ago, and I feel like it's no longer as recommended as it was before, but I really did find it beautiful. I listened to the audiobook, which is really incredible as well, and I feel like it really does represent this charm and this beauty and this imagination and this creativity, and I think that it really is an amazing book. Lastly, for this card, I could not recommend The Stationery Shop. It has one of the most beautiful romances I've ever read. It's set in Iran, and it's about these two teenagers that fall in love, and unfortunately they are separated due to a war and a political upheaval. But it's about them wondering about each other for the next decades of their lives. It does feature one of the most beautiful love stories I've ever read about. It is a really charming and romantic book, even though it is quite sad as well, and there are a lot of social and political themes into it. But I do prefer that over a straightforward romance book. I don't read a lot of just romances, so I do like a book that features a good romance in it. That's why I'm recommending most of those for this card. And I just think that this is a beautiful book. And I think that you'll really enjoy it if you read it, because it did teach me a lot about a specific time in Iran. And I had a really great time with it, and I think it featured a really beautiful and charming romance in it. And finally, if you picked card number 5, you got the Star, which is the only major arcana card that we had in this video. And this card is all about hope. It's about faith. It's about renewal. It's about spirituality. And even though I don't have a lot of like straightforward spirituality books, I would say the one that does fit this theme the most is also one of my all-time favorite books. You've heard me talk about this book, I hope, and that is Butter Honey Pea Bread by Francesca Chiuesi. This book is about two twin girls, and they, after a traumatic event that happens in their childhood, they are separated for a long time as well, and they come back for one of their weddings in Lagos, and they have like this mother, and it features a lot of like mythological themes in it. It's all about African mythology as well, so it has a lot of like fantastical tie-ins as well, which I really do enjoy. And I think that this book is all about renewal. It's about faith. It's about spirituality. There's a whole conversation about it, and I think that this is the book that fits the card the most, because this is just a star in a book, I believe. And it's also beautiful. One of the most beautiful writing I've ever read about. I love this book so much, and you need to read it. You need to read it like today. Then I will also recommend Love After Love by Ingrid Prasad. This is a book set in Trinidad and Tobago, and this is also about just what it means to love someone. It's about how to have hope, how to have faith that things will get better. It's about spirituality as well, not in a literal sense, more in the feel of the book that you have when you read it. It's a really incredible story. It's about this family, a woman, a husband, a very abusive husband, and their only child. And then when the father dies, when the child is young, they are left kind of to grow up alone, and there's a lot of secrets in that. And yeah, there's a lot of distance. There's a lot of what it means to love someone, and I think that this is a really, really wonderful book. And I think that it is about just having hope. And also the writing was beautiful. You could really feel like the Caribbean rhythm to it, and I feel like the voice is unlike any other that I've read before. So I think like this is a really, really impressive book. And the last book that I have to recommend is actually The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. Because the star is a card that's also about hope, but it's also about purpose. It's about having a purpose. It's about having faith in your purpose. And I think that The Pull of the Stars is a book that really does highlight that aspect of it. It's about our main character, whose name I no longer remember, I'm sorry, but she works as a nurse during the First World War, so like during the Spanish flu. And this book is set in Ireland, I think. And this is about this nurse that is specifically in the women's health, pregnant women department during the Spanish flu. So there's a lot of like hard things to read about, but she really does have this purpose, which is to help women during this awful time. And she really does have a purpose in that. She is determined. She has hope that things will get better. And I just think that there are a couple of flaws in this book. I will not get into it as to not spoil it, but I think that it really does reflect this card well. It's about having hope and purpose and faith in yourself. And I think that in her mission, this main character really does fight with all that she has. And I think that that is really impressive. Okay, so those are all of my book recommendations for this card. I hope that this made any type of sense. I know it's not very straightforward. It has a lot about intuition as well, so I hope that this made sense for some of you. I hope that I could recommend books that you haven't read before, and I hope to do this again maybe next year when I have read a couple more books that I would like to recommend. But I always have this struggle. I feel like I haven't read enough books to make book recommendation videos, if that makes any type of sense. Like, I just feel like I haven't read enough. But it's been 2 years since I've done this, and I hope that you all enjoyed watching and got some book recommendations out of it. Also, let me know which card you chose. Let me know in the comments if you chose card number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I would love to know that. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content, and I'll see you in my next video. I hope you have a nice day, and always remember that life is worth reading.